Hello. Hello. This thing is working. All right. There's a couple words I want to talk about. Efficiency, productivity, automation. These are the biggest gains that we're told to expect from AI. But the question is, what does this actually mean to our future as humans? Now, the experts, when asked this question, do not agree. So on one hand, on the left, you have the optimists who say that AI is going to generate extraordinary opportunities, going to make my kids' generation rich. We should think about AI augmenting humans. It will not replace us. And ultimately, it will lead to a maximum of human flourishing. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have the pessimists. We have experts in burnout who are worried that rather than this technology actually freeing us to do more of what we do best, we'll talk about that, they worry that it's actually going to give us more to do, give more pressure to us, and lead to more burnout. And then we have really smart people like Stephen Hawking who said, the real risk with AI is not malice but compliance. And so we have people coming out worrying about what this future means in terms of our humanity. So the question for you, when you think about the efficiency gains from AI, where do you land on this spectrum? If you're an optimist, maybe you're thinking that you see the possibilities with this technology and that it's going to free us to live more purposeful lives and work lives. Maybe you're a pessimist. You're worried that this efficiency will come at the expense of our own dignity, or you're somewhere in the messy middle. So who's an optimist? And I get that you may have different feelings. I see a bunch of hands. Okay, but where do you lean? That's really what I'm asking. Okay, who's a pessimist? Who's really worried about this? I see a good number of hands. Be brave, but there's no right or wrong answer. And then who's kind of in the messy middle? That's the majority of hands that I'm seeing. Okay, I get it. I feel you. So now let's bring the question closer to home. And I want us to think about us and our job as service designers. Are we positioned to shape how AI shows up in our own organizations? Who says yes? Good number of hands. Glad to see the chair of SCAD is raising her hand. Who says no? We don't have that agency. We're not empowered to do this. I see several hands, not quite as many. And then who's just not sure? Maybe, I'm not sure. Let's see some of this. Okay. So there's no right or wrong answer, but if you said maybe or no, I'm hoping that you'll reconsider your position by the end of this talk. So the narrative around AI, as you have probably noticed, is often framed in extremes. It's utopia versus dystopia. It's savior of humankind or destroyer of the human race. But somewhere in between lies a very urgent question that we need to start answering, which is what do we actually want this technology to do for us? And who's the us in that sentence? Who are we actually designing this for? Now, while we try to figure this out, as you've probably read, global investment in AI is soaring. According to the latest study I saw, it's expected to reach close to $650 billion this year alone, and it's going up. And we're also seeing implementation of AI going up. So I know this chart's a little difficult to read. It's from McKinsey. But what they did is they surveyed organizations and asked over time how much these organizations were using AI in their different business functions. And so the chart on the very left, it's a proverbial hockey stick chart. You see adoption going up. More than 75% of these organizations said that they're already implementing AI in at least one business function. And what the research says is that the use of generative AI, in particular, is rapidly increasing. Oops, that was the wrong button. And yet, who saw this study? I was just talking about this with someone at lunch. And yet, MIT is reporting that we are seeing a lot of generative AI pilots failing most of them, actually, 95%, which is kind of astounding when you think about the amount of energy and physical energy and actual, dollars that are going into this. Now, when you look at this study, it says, many of these projects are failing due to a misalignment with day-to-day operations. Misalignment with day-to-day operations, which to me sounds like a design problem. It sounds like someone is putting technology somewhere but not really understanding what the humans are trying to do and how it fits in to their lives. So we'll come back to that. But even the optimists about AI in that earlier chart will agree that the goal is not just to shove AI into everything. It's actually to be purposeful about how we want to use this technology so that we can free humans up to do more of what we're so good at. So let's talk about that. Forget technology. Let's talk about us. Technology is just an enabler. What are we good at? Well, it turns out that for all of AI's remarkable capabilities, and there are many, there are still some things that humans can do that AI simply can't do. AI cannot experience the world as we do. It can't feel, even with all the sensor technology that we've developed. Technically, it can't think, at least not the way a human thinks. And it certainly can't relate its experience in the world to our own. Now, another thing that sets us humans apart from AI, and this is the one we're going to talk about, is our capacity to care. So what does that mean, to care? To sense what someone needs before they say it. To hold space for discomfort. To show up with compassion, even when it's inconvenient. We do it anyway. AI cannot hold our hand when we're upset. It cannot wipe our tears when we feel grief. These are messy, beautiful human moments that give our lives purpose and meaning. And there's no algorithm that can automate this. And this is where I think it's useful to remember that we're mammals. We're mammals, which means we're social animals. We are dependent on one another. This is how we've evolved. This ability to care for each other is actually core to our survival. It's a survival skill. And yet, it's the very thing that we've devalued in our pursuit of speed and efficiency. Okay, I like to share a lot of stories, so I'm going to start with, I'm going to share a couple stories today, and I want to tell you where I'm coming from on this topic. So about 15 years ago, I burned out at work. It was awful. Now, I've spoken about my experience on many stages over the last 15 years, and I've done a lot of writing about it, so I'm just going to tell you the basic outlines, and there's plenty more if you want to learn about it. But essentially, 15 years ago, I was running a design team in San Francisco. My team was growing at work. My team at home was growing. I had 3 little kids. And on the surface, I had this perfect life. But I found myself in this bind that it turns out millions of women have found themselves in, where I felt like I had to do my job as if I didn't have kids, and then raise my kids as if I didn't have a job. And it was killing me. So long story short, I went home from work one day, I went home sick, and I never went back. And I ended up taking a year off to just pull myself together. I did a lot of soul searching during that year. I did a lot of research, started talking to my friends, started talking to experts, and eventually I wrote a book about my experience, which came out about 10 years ago. So I've done a lot of thinking about this topic of burnout. But while I was writing the book, I thought I was telling a story about work. And what I've come to realize is that this is about a lot more than work. Burnout is about more than just having too many emails to answer or not enough sleep. It's about living in a society that simply devalues care. We reward performance, output, productivity. These are nice, strong, safe business words. But we treat care as if it's inefficient, inconvenient, and disposable. So one of the quotes you saw in the earlier slide was from this gentleman, Geoffrey Hinton. People know who Geoffrey Hinton is? Oh, look him up. I don't see any a couple hands. Okay, so he's a British-Canadian computer scientist. He's widely considered to be the godfather of AI. And it turns out that he's one of the most prominent voices that is sounding the alarms about, some of the potential downsides of this powerful new technology. And he said something recently that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "We must build maternal instincts into AI models so that they genuinely care about us as humans and therefore won't want to wipe us out." So he used the word care and he used the word maternal instincts. And I think what he's really talking about is motherly love, the love that we all depend on to survive. So what is that? What characterizes motherly love? It's protective, it's nurturing, it's intuitive and patient, and even at times self-sacrificing. What if that became our design principle? What if care and motherly love became core to the infrastructure of this incredibly powerful new technology that we're starting to roll out around the world? Because here's the truth. AI may be able to synthesize data faster than you or I ever could. But you know what? It doesn't feel responsibility. It doesn't experience empathy. It doesn't value anything except what we tell it to value. Values are our domain. And if we're entering a future that's increasingly shaped by machines, our ability to care may be our most strategic asset. Why, you may ask? Because AI doesn't care about us, but it's getting very good at mimicking care. And I want to take a quick detour and talk about this for a minute, because this is a very dangerous place to be. AI doesn't care about us, but it can sound very empathetic. It can reassure us, it can validate us, it can apologize on cue. But let's be clear, it's not actually caring about us. It's predicting what it thinks we want to hear. Kind of like a well-adapted sociopath. It reflects us back to ourselves in ways that can be incredibly flattering, but they're not always truthful, and they're rarely challenging. If we start relying on AI to do the caring for us, to mediate our relationships with each other, to provide the emotional support that we used to get from other humans, to be our most trusted confidant, helping us make the hard decisions, we risk becoming a society of emotionally unaccountable narcissists. And you know what? We're falling for it. So last year, the number one reason, this is from Harvard Business Review, the number one reason people said they were using generative AI was to generate ideas. It's really good at that. I still use it for that. This year, that's fallen to the number 6 reason. The number 1 reason that people say they're using generative AI is for therapy and companionship. So, restated, the number 1 reason that people are using a technology that mimics care, much like a charming sociopath, is to develop a relationship with it. What could possibly go wrong? If the future of AI is being built on a technology that can't care, doesn't care, then the responsibility falls on us, the humans, to double down on that distinctively human capacity. Real care provides more than comfort and more than flattery. Real care sees us as we are. Real care, and I hope you see this in your own relationships, holds up a mirror so we can see ourselves as we are. It invites us to be better for ourselves and for each other, even when we don't want to hear it. And that's simply something that AI is not set up to do. Okay, here's where you come in. Enter service design. So service designers do a lot more than make pretty tables and map journeys and design workflows. When we're really good at our job, we genuinely care about the humans that are affected by the systems that we are putting into place. So the question is, how do we bring that care into the room? How do we bring it into our work? And I'm going to answer that, but first I want to tell you another story. The story is about my family again. These are my kids now. So our son on the left just started college at UMass Amherst, and the girls now have jobs in New York City. Everyone's growing up and doing really well, and my husband Brian and I are really proud of them. This is Brian, my husband, their dad. And one other thing to know about Brian, besides the fact that he's the hero of this story, or at least he's my hero in this story, he used to be a UX designer, and so he sees things in systems. Sometimes he sees things others miss. Now, when our girls decided that they wanted to get an apartment together in Brooklyn, Brian, being a good dad, said, great, I'll help you rent the moving truck and move your stuff. Now, it's been a really long time since Brian and I had to do this for ourselves, but we remembered the basic process. So like, back in the olden days, in the late 90s, this is how you did it. You call the rental company on the phone, you make a reservation. Step 2, show up at the rental truck company. Step 3, pick up your truck. Pretty simple, old method. But it turned out that this rental truck company, this national brand that you've heard of, was modernizing. And they were improving their processes. So they had a brand new workflow that I'll show you here. They were automating. So step 1, reserve your truck online. Modern, not bad, right? You can enter your own data. That way any mistakes are yours. And then it gets familiar. Show up at the rental place, and then you pick up your truck. Oh, wait a second. You show up at the rental place, but then you have to download a mobile app. Has anyone done this recently, by the way? Okay, let's see if this is familiar. Okay, so you download the mobile app, and then you have to add your personal data. You just did that online, but whatever. So then, of course, you need to identify your vehicle. Okay, maybe that's not so bad. At least you get to pick the truck you're going to get. And, oh, that's actually 100 steps, because they want to upsell you on packing tape and moving those hand trucks and the boxes. But eventually you get through those steps and you pick up your truck. No, you don't. Now it's time to upload your ID. And then you need to inspect the truck for damage. But that's a process, because there's a very specific way to do this. It involves going around the truck at certain angles and taking photos, and it's very precise. Okay, you get the idea, right? This went on and on and on. Okay, so meanwhile, we're going to switch to a fictional depiction of what was happening in the little retail location where my family was trying to get their truck. There was a small crowd there that was steaming with anger. Everyone thought they were there to pick up their truck. They didn't think that they were there to do a skilled job that no one had taught them to do. And unfortunately, they were taking their anger out at this poor lone woman all by herself behind the counter. And eventually she turned to the group and she said, look, I understand your frustration, but it does no good to get mad at me. And that's when my husband spoke up. And he said, ma'am, we're not angry at you. We are angry on your behalf, because your company has betrayed you by offloading your skilled paid labor onto us so they could pay you less money. There was a silence, and then it broke the spell, and the room started cheering. It was like all the humans were ready to, lead a revolution, and then suddenly they were on the same page again. And then the beautiful thing about this story is that the humans started doing what humans are so good at, which is helping each other figure out how to use the stupid app. Okay, let's reflect. Let's think about the story I just told you. Now, you can imagine that there was someone at this national moving truck company who was very pleased with himself because he had figured out a way to take cost out. And he probably got a big bonus that year. Maybe he got a promotion. But you can also imagine that how the brand team would feel if they were a fly on the wall at every single retail location across America, watching a small mutiny take place in their own store. So the question I have is, how can a company like this stay in business for the medium to long term when it's destroying brand equity with every customer interaction? Now, I know there's been a lot of discussion in the design community in recent years, a lot of soul searching about whether what we do makes a difference. A lot of questions about, maybe is good design really good business? But I really hope we can agree on something. It is not good business to make your customers despise you. And when you think about that 95% failure rate that we talked about in the MIT study, I have a feeling it's related to what we're seeing in this story. Someone somewhere is trying to automate a process, they're trying to implement it with technology, and they're not thinking through the actual human implications, the holistic experience that they're impacting. All right, so here's where you come in. Service designers are already doing this. You have the right mindsets. You come with a caring mindset. There it is. You bring wholehearted curiosity. You bring humility and doubt. Humility is important because it means we don't assume we know all the answers. We don't know exactly how the technology should work. We ask questions and we get feedback. And we embrace diversity. And this is as important as it's ever been because we need help. We all have blind spots, and we need help seeing through each other's blind spots. Another thing that service designers can do is ask really good questions, and I'd like to propose that there are some new questions that we can start asking. So think about the moving truck story as you think about these questions. If you were a service designer on this project, does this design reduce stress or simply shift it downstream to other human workers? What forms of human dignity or trust are at stake here, and how do we protect them? If I cared deeply about the people using the system, what would I do differently? Think about that poor woman behind the counter. Am I automating a process or simply shifting the burden of labor to customers or other human workers under the guise of self-service? Thinking about the conversation that Brandon and Shelley had earlier. That's a really good question for us to ask. Service designers can infuse care into the process. We have some tools already that we're using. I think we should double down on these tools. The first one is about personas. Now, I had a whole really active discussion with a few of you last night over dinner around the use of personas, and I think we've all seen where personas are not very helpful, but they can, when used correctly, they can be a great tool for going beyond data to help us understand what people actually need, what their motivations are, what their different contexts are as we design a system. Scenario planning. So there's a whole bunch of methods. You can call them speculative futures or what-if exercises. But these are exercises that help us, in a structured way, look into the future, peer around corners, and think about what are the intended as well as the unintended consequences of what we're putting together. And then I'm really passionate about this one. I think we all need to become great storytellers. And you know why? Because we're not rational creatures. We are not making decisions based on data and facts. People make decisions based on emotion. So it's good to have the data and facts. I want us to have the data and facts, but we need to present them in a way that helps our product teams actually feel what is going on and what the potential human consequences are of what we're doing. Okay, now I want to share a really simple example of what it looks like when you do care. So I haven't told you about my new job yet. I just started a new job at Sam's Club. Sam's Club is part of Walmart. We're a Fortune 1 company. And Sam's Club's ambition is to become the world's best club retailer, not only for our members, our paying members, but also for our associates who work in the stores. And we have about 600 clubs across the US and Puerto Rico. And my job as the VP of Experience Strategy and Innovation is to lead an amazing team that is thinking through the end-to-end experience, both the physical and digital omni-channel experience of what it's like to interact with us in our stores. And we're doing a lot of really interesting pioneering work with AI. So I was just talking backstage with a fan of Sam's Scan and Go technology. I don't know if anyone else has used it. I see some hands. Okay, awesome. I can't take any credit for it. The team did this before I came, but we're still working on it. So the thing you're looking at here are our exit arches. And these are AI-powered arches that basically unlock this ability for members to come into the club, get their stuff, put it in the cart, and simply walk out of the club. They don't need to get in line, no need to talk to a cashier, no need to do the self-checkout thing, which we also talked about earlier today. So it's really great, right? Skip the line, friction-free. Now, my boss is the Chief Experience Officer, Diana, and she regularly visits the clubs just to see what's going on there. And at some point, she made this observation that as you watch the exit arches, there would be a Sam's Club attendant, as they were trained to be there, kind of outside the arches, watching people pass through. And when people successfully made it through, they would say something officious, like, good to go. Now, to a machine, that may be perfectly fine, right? Transaction successful. But to a human, there was a cold implication that maybe next time you wouldn't be good to go. And then what? So it gave this feeling that you're being scrutinized as a potential shoplifter. Now, when I heard this story, it reminded me about this Saturday Night Live skit. Maybe some of you have seen it. I'm going to play the beginning of it. It's not technically about the Sam's Club technology, but it's about similar technology that Amazon was rolling out. And I think the video speaks for itself. I'm just going to play the beginning. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. OK, I'm going to stop it there. You get the idea. Now, if you're a human with any empathy in your body, it's not going to take very long to realize not everyone is going to immediately embrace this technology. And so we need to work with that. We need to meet people where they are. So back to our exit arch story. Based on Diana's observation, we made a very simple change. And that's why I like this story, because it was so simple. There wasn't even any technology involved. We simply trained the store attendants who were standing at the arches. Instead of saying good to go when the customer walks out, they say thank you. Really subtle. But it shifted the energy from I'm checking out to see if you're going to steal something to you are welcome here. And that made all the difference. It's this type of human connection, this type of human observation that has helped us successfully roll this technology out over the last 7 years and is continuing to increase adoption. All right, so back to you. As a service designer, you're going to have 1,000 opportunities to make these kinds of observations and make these kinds of changes, especially if you're working on technology that involves AI. Our job is going to be about more than implementing the technology. It's about delivering dignity to the people who are interacting with it. OK, so a bunch of you raised your hand. Not everyone, but some people were not sure that service design really had a role to play here. So this message is for you. I think we're at a really important inflection point. The future of work is up for grabs. People are asking, what is my role when the machines can do so much and they can do more every day? And this is where we come in. This is our opportunity to step forward. Because our job, like I said, is about more than implementing the technology. It's about figuring out how to make it work for the humans involved. And it's the humans who are paying us, and it's the human workers, and it's everyone who's interacting with these systems. More than half of US workers say that they're worried. They're worried about AI. They're worried about how this technology is being shaped. They're worried that it's being delivered to them in a way that is not taking their best interests in mind. And in some cases, they have real reason to be worried. That's why I think that our ability to care visibly and unapologetically is a ballast in the storm of change that we're going through right now. Okay, so last set of things that you can do as a service designer. Ready? We can make care tangible in the systems we shape. For example, we can name the trade-offs. Who benefits from this automation, but who bears the cost? We can design for psychological safety. I like that example from Diana. That's exactly what she was doing. She was trying to create psychological safety for our members. We also need to do that, again, for the human workers using these systems so that they still have agency and protection from burnout. And we can shift the metrics, and this is an area where I have seen the design community really step up in recent years. There's been a lot of discussion about how do we move beyond standard business metrics to look at things like trust or belonging, emotional well-being, the psychological sort of impact on humans. These are not just feel-good ideas. This is a business discussion. Getting this right will absolutely impact the business bottom line. If you're creating an efficient system that alienates a large portion of your customers, I promise you are ripe for what Silicon Valley loves to call disruption. It will happen. Okay, so when I was putting this presentation together, I realized that I've been doing this work for 25 years. Thank you. So when I think about the people I was working with 25 years ago, we were so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We really thought that we were making the world better with technology. We really believed it. And then you fast forward 25 years, and we're finding out that technology is harming our youth. We're all more distracted and less connected than we've ever been. Less connected, despite all this technology that we created to connect us. We are in a loneliness epidemic. That's what the experts tell us. Social media has made us all more self-involved, and we've lost a shared view of what reality is. This is not what we set out to do 25 years ago, and it did not have to be this way. So technology is going to keep accelerating. There's no stopping that part. But I think we're at another inflection point right now. The future of how we choose to shape this powerful new technology is still up for grabs. And we have the tools. We have the insights. What we need now is the will to act with courage, clarity, and care. And I hope you'll join me in taking on that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are we doing Q&A?
If you're still open to it.
I'm up for it.
Let's do it. Join me, please.
Yeah. Grab my water.
Yes, definitely. So, I didn't know. I met you, what, an hour ago, maybe?
Backstage.
Well, I'm apparently now a fangirl, so just really enjoyed what you shared and really resonated with me. Just thinking about empathy and care and really our role in that's uniquely human. It's just so refreshing and just...
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you. All right, questions. I'm done. Chills are gone. I wanted to thank you for just sharing your story about burnout. I know I personally have experienced it. I'm sure many of us in the room have, and thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that. Question I do have for you is, as you think about how we uniquely bring care to the work as service designers, right? How do you balance that amount of care with the potential risk of burnout?
That's interesting. I think you're bringing up something I didn't really talk about, but there's an emotional labor that comes with caring. So I had a boss once who told me I should never seek feedback because asking for feedback is a sign of weakness and caring for people is a sign of weakness. I know, he was an executive. He was very, very powerful man. But I think what he missed, and this was his problem, that was his problem, but I think what he missed is that it takes a lot of strength to care. It takes emotional resources to care. It takes emotional maturity to care. And it does take some maturity and strength to know when to sort of like take care of yourself. That's got to be part of it. That's got to be in the care equation.
Agreed.
Yeah, so, but the flip side is, what's the flip side? Don't care? What's the flip side? Apathy? That's not a world I want to live in.
I agree. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, would you categorize, you talked about AI mimicking care. There's a question, would you categorize AI mimicking care as dark pattern or deceptive design?
Oh, geez. Is it, yeah. I mean, look, I think we just got news that there's an old model that's coming back from one of the famous LLMs that we're all using, and it's the one that really flatters you. There's a reason for it. We love to be flattered. Who doesn't, you know? So is it a dark pattern? Well, depending on how it's used, yeah. I mean, I think this is the watch out. We need to figure out what are the guardrails around this. We've seen some really bad stories in the news about AI not holding you accountable, AI not holding up a mirror and saying, you know what, I think you need professional help, or you should take your medication, or whatever the thing is. So it's not that being validated or being flattered is wrong, but it's wrong when it's out of balance, definitely.
That's good. Just more about how it's used.
Yeah, it's how it's used is why. Why is it trained that way?
That's good.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. How can we start to address the climate impacts of Gen AI?
Yeah. I mean, this is one I really struggle with. In my last role, I had a sustainability studio as part of my remit, and we would talk about this all the time. Stamping our feet and saying, don't use AI was not going to do the thing. I mean, there's a momentum that we're in right now. Yeah, so I don't have the answer on that. What I can say is we need a lot more investment in renewable resources. I've started researching nuclear energy. I think there's some really interesting stuff around that, given all the power that we are consuming and how much that's increasing. I think also we all need to remember that we're citizens in whatever country you are from, and we live in a society, and we need to vote, and we need to have our voice heard. I mean, these are all, you know, like we structure these systems that we live in. And it goes beyond, that goes beyond our work. That goes to being human in a society.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
A couple similar ones I'm going to try to meld together. You talked about like motherly care and just the idea of care and how it's like the negative connotations that go along with it versus really pumping up efficiency and optimization and performance, right? So there are a couple questions. What potential metrics do you see that could become, I'd say, part of like our business acumen or how we measure our work that would help push towards that?
Yeah. So I don't know that there is one right metric. I think we have to look at the context in which we're working. We have to look at how we're using these metrics, how it's going to guide decision making, because ultimately, especially in these service design roles, we want metrics that give us feedback so we know if we're on the right track, or if we're on the wrong track, how do we fix it? In past, just in my like work experience, we've done a lot with customer effort scores. So that was in situations where people are trying to complete an interaction, but having one way of measuring the friction was incredibly powerful for our design team and our product team to figure out, okay, where's the friction? That's where we need to go. But there's all kinds of experiments of other ways of doing this. I'm not a big fan of NPS. I think there's been a lot of discussion in the design community about NPS. It's such a broad question. You know, would you recommend this brand? It just ends up not being very meaningful. You might be mad about one thing over here, but we're really asking about this thing over here. And so I think we need other ways of measuring.
Yeah, no, that's good. Time check, okay. You spoke a bit about some of the key characteristics of service designers. You talked about like humility, empathy. Do you believe that these are things that can be taught or upskilled, or is it actually maybe what has driven all of us to service design and are kind of just ingrained?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, I think we can train ourselves, even if you come with natural, inclinations around empathy. I think listening is an art. I used to think I was a great listener, and then I read a book about listening, and I was like, oh, I've got more work to do. Like, really deeply getting in there and witnessing and listening and just taking it in that's part of empathy. So I think some of these things we can teach ourselves, we can learn, but I mean, I guess if you're a sociopath, it's not there.
Right.
But that's very rare.
Yes. And you have to have the humility and willingness to
recognize.
To even what you just said, like to acknowledge, oh, I thought I was great at this. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I still have things to learn.
Maybe I have work to do.
We all have work to do and things to learn. So that's
right.
Refreshing to hear.
That's right.
We've got some more coming in. Okay, what is your opinion on the application of AI in education, like at universities?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about that because my youngest just graduated high school and just started college. I don't know. I mean, I think, so one of the funny things about using LLMs is if we want to use them in ways that are really productive and good for us, we have to understand our own limitations better. And I mean, I've used Gen AI to tutor me before a client meeting. Like, tell me everything I need to know about telecommunications industry so I don't sound stupid when I meet with this person. And it's really good for that, and I can get it to quiz me. But I'm telling it what to do. I'm telling it not to just keep telling me I'm doing a good job, but where are my blind spots? So I think maybe there's a new set of skills that we need to teach students, just like we need to teach people media literacy with social media. We also need to teach them how to use LLMs in a way that is productive and doesn't take you down a really dark path.
Yeah, the ethics behind it and kind of the safety, privacy piece of it potentially.
Well, there's so many things. I mean, one of the things I worry about, especially with young people using AI, is this lack of critical thinking. Because the technology is so good at sounding plausible, sounding truthful, and sounding like something, smart, you might not actually read closely, and it lies, it hallucinates, and no one's figured out the problem for that yet. So if we turn our brain off and we're using just the output of what we get from AI, we're in trouble because, that's where lawyers have gotten fired because they used what an AI said was a precedent that didn't exist. And, we need to keep our brains on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we do that when it's so easy to get lulled into this fiction.
Yep. All right, one last question. How do you see the intersection of, I'll say, like care and business value?
Care and business value. Yeah, so, the story that I told about the moving truck company, there was a lack of care in that system. And that company may see a stock price bump for a quarter or 2 quarters or, I don't know, maybe 2 years. But eventually someone's going to come in and say, you know what, there's a better way to do this that people want. And then it's going to be gone. So that's where I see the business connection. It's like, you got to work with your customers and you got to work with your employees. These are the people who make your business function. And so how do we do that in a way that's humane, that is, a win-win for everyone?
And to your point, that's where service designers come in.
And that's where service designers come in. You all are really good at figuring that out.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Any
you.
final thoughts you want to share? I know we're at time.
No, I think let's have a good party tonight. This was the closing talk.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Thank you so
See
much.
you at dinner.
Please join me in giving her a round of applause.
Thank you.